They didn't become themselves overnight. They didn't suddenly wake up clear. They just stopped pretending, stopped agreeing when something felt wrong, stopped smiling when they felt empty, stopped adjusting just to keep things stable. And for the first time, things felt quiet. Not lonely, not confusing, just real. But here's what most people miss. That moment doesn't come from gaining something. It comes from losing what was never truly you. And this is where everything begins. Because by the end of this video, you're going to understand something simple but powerful. Life doesn't begin when everything around you changes. It begins when you stop abandoning yourself in small moments. Now, think about this carefully. There's always a version of you that people are used to. The one who adjusts, the one who stays quiet, the one who avoids tension, even when it costs them internally. And for a while, it works. You stay connected. You avoid conflict. But here's what most people miss. Every time you choose comfort over truth, you move a little further away from yourself. Not in one big moment. In small ones, repeated, until one day, something feels off. You're there, but not fully present. Living, but not fully aligned. And this is where confusion starts. Because everything looks fine on the outside, but inside, you feel disconnected. If this feels familiar, type 1 in the comments. Not for engagement, but because awareness is the first shift. Now, here's where it gets deeper. Finding yourself is not about becoming someone new. It's about seeing clearly, seeing the patterns, the habits, the ways you adapted just to be accepted. And this is where Daniel Kahneman's idea becomes powerful. He said, nothing in life is as important as you think it is while you're thinking about it. Think about that. The version of you that feels so important to maintain might just be a pattern you never questioned. And this is where everything changes. Because now, you're not trying to fix yourself. You're starting to understand yourself. And understanding is where real change begins. Now look at your daily life. There are moments where you feel something clearly. You want to say something, but you stop, you adjust. And this is where the internal split happens. One part of you knows what feels right. The other part chooses what feels safe. And this is the part no one tells you. The longer you choose safety over truth, the harder it becomes to recognize yourself. And slowly, life starts feeling like something you're managing, not living. Now, here's the shift. Life doesn't begin when everything becomes perfect. It begins when you stop ignoring what you already feel is true. And that shift changes everything. And this is where it starts to feel uncomfortable. Not because something is wrong, but because something is finally honest. You begin to notice things you ignored before. Conversations that feel forced. Reactions that don't match words. Moments where you're present, but not real. And this is where everything changes. Because now, you're aware. But here's what most people miss. Awareness doesn't feel peaceful at first. It feels disruptive because it shows you what you've been tolerating. Now, think about this carefully. There are moments when you say yes, when everything inside you wants to say no. Moments where you stay quiet, just to avoid tension. And each time, you adjust. Not because you want to, but because it feels easier. And this is the part no one tells you. The more you adjust like this, the more disconnected you become. Because you're not acting from truth. You're acting from habit, from conditioning. And this is where things go deeper. You start noticing emotional dismissal. not loud, just small moments. You express something real, and it's brushed aside. You open up, and the response feels incomplete. Not wrong, just empty. And this is where everything builds. You don't react immediately. You observe, because one moment doesn't matter. Patterns do. And over time, you adjust again. You share less. You expect less. Not because you don't care, but because you're learning how your reality is received. But here's what most people miss. This isn't growth. This is adaptation. And adaptation can slowly take you away from yourself. Now here's where pressure becomes subtle, not control. Just small emotional signals. You've changed. You're overthinking. And this is where everything changes. Because now you start questioning yourself. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm too much. And this is where the damage builds silently. Because once you stop trusting your perception, you lose clarity. And this is the part no one tells you. Clarity is what keeps you grounded. Without it, everything feels uncertain. Now let's talk about boundaries. Not loud ones, internal ones. What feels right, what doesn't. And slowly, your tolerance changes. Things you accepted before don't feel acceptable anymore. And this is where doubt appears. Am I becoming difficult? But here's what most people miss. You're not becoming difficult. You're becoming clear. Now let's go deeper. You give, you show up, but it's not returned the same way. And for a while, you ignore it. You justify it. But imbalance always creates exhaustion. Slowly, quietly, until one day, you feel drained without knowing why. And this is where everything becomes real. Because now, you're not just aware, you're tired. And tired minds stop pretending. Now we're about to move into the moment where everything shifts completely. The moment where awareness becomes a decision. And once that happens, you don't go back the same way. And this is where everything becomes quiet. Not because nothing is happening, but because something inside you has finally settled. You're no longer trying to fix everything. You're no longer trying to be understood by everyone. You're just seeing clearly. And this is where the shift happens. Not outside, inside. Because now, you're not reacting automatically. You're choosing. And this is the part most people miss. They don't leave suddenly. They leave after they already left emotionally. And this is where everything changes. Because once that internal detachment happens, you can't return the same way. Not fully, not honestly. Now, think about this moment. There's always a point where something inside you says, this doesn't feel right anymore. Not loudly, not dramatically, just clearly. And this is where most people hesitate. They question it. Am I overthinking? Am I changing too much? But here's what most people miss. That voice is not confusion, it's clarity. And this is where everything becomes real. Because now you have a choice. Go back to comfort or move forward into truth. And truth doesn't always feel easy. It feels unfamiliar. But this is the part no one tells you. Unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong. It means real. Now let's go deeper. When you start choosing truth, things around you begin to shift. Some conversations feel forced. Some connections feel weaker. And this creates doubt again. Am I losing people? But here's the truth most people don't want to accept. You're not losing people. You're losing misalignment. And misalignment was never connection to begin with. Now this is where everything becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. You stop forcing what doesn't fit. You stop holding on to what drains you, and slowly your life becomes lighter. Not because everything is perfect, but because everything is honest. And honesty creates peace. Now, let's bring this to the final truth. If you've spent years adjusting, giving more, being someone just to be accepted, then finding yourself will feel like distance at first. Distance from people, distance from patterns. But this is the part no one tells you. It's not distance, it's alignment. And alignment always feels unfamiliar before it feels right. Now here's the subtle warning. Once you find yourself, you won't be able to go back to who you were, because clarity doesn't disappear. It stays, and it changes how you see everything. People, situations, your own decisions. And that can feel uncomfortable, but it's real. And real is where life begins. Because in the end, you don't find yourself by searching harder. You find yourself by finally being honest about what feels true. And once you do that, everything changes.